Today's daily drop is called Not Having a Topic to Talk About, when in fact I've got loads of topics to talk about. So what I'm going to talk about today is the 5-day tiny challenge that I'm going to be rolling out. What I've learned about setting up a 5-day tiny challenge is that it takes much more than 5 days to set it up. So to you, the end user, it sounds like a walk in the park, doesn't it? A tiny challenge. But to me, the guy who's putting it together, developing the resources and scheduling it and planning it out, different story altogether. However, I am my own worst enemy in this respect. The truth of the matter is I can't put anything out unless I am sure in my own mind that it's going to be useful. Can't help myself. I also need to have the resources set up in such a way that I can send them to anybody if they need them, and that they provide a blueprint, not only for the person who's using the course, but also for myself as somebody that's arbitrating it, running it. Just in brief, the 5-day tiny challenge is expanding in its remit. I thought I'd got it nailed. I thought I'd drilled down into a particular demographic, a man of a certain age, somebody who wants to pivot in career, who may be experiencing levels of disappointment or frustration in parts of their lives. And I'm not a blamer. I don't believe in passing on blame to other people for one's own actions. I also think that more people should subscribe to that viewpoint. Not because I'm judgmental, but because a lot of people find themselves blaming other people or putting themselves into a victimhood mentality or a martyrdom of some kind, when in fact the expectations and the dynamics that they've created, they've done it to themselves and for themselves. It's too easy, isn't it, really, to say that, oh, I'm doing this because I've sacrificed X amount for so long, when in fact what you've wanted to do is maintain control for so long. It's also too easy to pretend to be a nice guy and tell everybody that you're the best guy in the room, the most suitable, the most giving, the most loyal, the most dependable, the most everything, when in fact the only reason you're presenting like that is because you want to get laid. And the bad news is, my friend, most women that you try this with can see right through it. So then the paradox becomes that presenting as a nice guy actually becomes repulsive. You now begin to chase away, repel the very people that you're trying to attract. How ironic is that? Now, that's not to blame you, but I do think that it's worthwhile to point out to a person when they are living under a false premise that that's what they're doing. So the tiny challenge isn't just turn up and do the work and that's cool. In order to qualify for the tiny challenge, you would have to do a radical honesty audit. The radical honesty audit itself has grown and evolved. Initially, I was able to request AI to provide me with 30 questions in order for a person to do the radical honesty audit. And as always, AI is a great slave, but a bad master, and it did what it was told and it did what I requested of it. But I worked out pretty quickly that nobody wants to sit through 30 questions. Or if they do, they certainly don't want to do it as part of a 5-day tiny challenge. So what I did instead was I posted and published the radical honesty audit. I'll put a link below if you're interested in having a look. And I've just asked anybody that reads it to cherry pick 3 prime questions from each of the different phases that is discussed, and then to submit a single paragraph response to each of those single questions that they're working on. And then, all being well, you will send me your responses and I will get in touch with you and say, would you like to do the tiny challenge? I'm only looking for 5 people. I've already fielded quite a few people via email and have had very little response, actually. So now I'm doing the next logical thing. I'm going to put it out on YouTube and ask people to respond to me. Also, bit of dust. Also, I'm going to send out another email to those same people, because how often do you get stuff in your in tray which you ignore, largely because, well, it just looks like spam. One of the challenges of putting out your worst to people is that most of us are now inundated with unsolicited information and emails. And unfortunately, the only way forward is to join them. I actually think there are probably better strategies, and I'm going to look into it, better ways to reach people. I really enjoy YouTube. I really enjoy this notion, the live stream. I really enjoy I get a kick out of being alive at a time when I can sit in my car by a beautiful harbour here in Amaru and literally reach out to billions of people around the globe, around the known universe. Oh, while I'm here, I'll just share with you something that I received today. I want to show you. Don't worry, we're not going to graduate into unboxing videos, but there is something in the box. Do you want to know what's in the box? Give me a thumbs up if you want to know what's in the box. Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to show you anyway. This is hot off the press, courtesy of Vistaprint, who have handled my order expeditiously and efficiently. There you go. I was drinking from my own mug, which has a similar motif on it, and somebody asked me if the mugs were for sale. I thought, that's a good idea, but I'm not going to sell somebody else's mug. What I'll do is I'll design my own mug with my own logo on it, and if anybody wants to join the Effing Legend Club, please feel free to do so. Drop me a line, and if it's in my power to do so, I can make another one for you and send it to you. Obviously for a price. I'm not a charity. Anyway, that's today's unboxing over with. I was quite excited about that. The next thing I'm going to get is the beanie with the pattern interrupter logo on the top, although they're having problems with the sewing of that, I understand. And I'm going to get a cap with the same logo as on the cup on that. Anyway, that was my thrill of excitement for the day. What does the rest of the day hold? Well, I've already coached my hairstylist. Although you could say she listened patiently while she cut my hair. I'm not sure whether that qualifies as coaching. But I told her all about the nice guy paradox, the idea that, because she's quite attractive, so is Candice. So I said, look, attractive women, they've got a radar which they develop over the years, and they probably apply it between the ages of 14 to 40. And when a guy's being nice to them, usually it's because they want something, and usually that thing they want, the woman isn't prepared to give. Not that freely anyway, and certainly not to not that many people. So yeah, the nice guy can find themselves locked in a process where they think they're doing all the right things, but in fact they're doing all the wrong things. And the central issue they have is that they've been deluding themselves. They're in a delusional mind state. So my coaching and the 5-day tiny challenge is going to talk about authority leaks, the way that we surrender authority to other people, or the way that nice guys do that. Linguistic leaks, the way that the language we use reflects the inner dialogue. I think I posted about that yesterday, actually. I'm going to talk about why saying sorry makes you sorry. As I explained to Candice earlier today, when you bump into somebody in the supermarket or you just have a minor inconvenience, the reflex is to say sorry. You're not. Why are you saying sorry if you're not actually sorry? Surely you should be saying, I apologize or pardon me. And the reason I make this distinction is because when you say, I'm sorry, you're literally telling your brain and your subconscious that you are sorry, like as in a sorry individual. And how can you claim authority? How can you claim stack? How can you stand tall in an environment when you've adopted such a submissive posture? So, in short, stop saying sorry for every Tom, Dick and Harry situation you encounter, in particular when you are not actually sorry. You need to get in touch with your reality, don't you? Start naming things for what they are. Another part of the 5-day challenge is to eradicate the phrase, I'll try. And the title of that exercise is Why I'll Try equals I'll Lie. When you say I'll try, what you're doing is you're emotionally blackmailing people into accepting substandard delivery. You have to replace I'll try with I will. Say what you mean what you say. And as I've said before, as the reggae song says, you better let your yeah be yeah and your no be no now. That's me singing. And I think day 5 of the 5-day tiny challenge is going to be a summary. It's going to be a little bit of a instructional day about how to alter one's physiology and the impacts of altering one's physiology on one's neurology. Neurology being the study of how the brain works, physiology being the study of how the body works. Here's an interesting newsflash for you. Those two things are actually quite intimately connected, especially when you're looking at the vagus nerve and your central nervous system. Did you know that simply by breathing deeply and calming down your breathing, you can tell or inform your brain that there's nothing to worry about? So many people within the nice guy paradigm tend to act in a reactive manner because they're constantly in fight or flight. And one of the ways that you can overcome that is simply by taking charge of how you're breathing, taking charge of how you express yourself, the words you use, and also, of course, when you express yourself. Learning to count to 10 before you respond. Gosh, that's a difficult one. But it really is fun to try. Introducing silences into your conversation is a great way to assert authority. You see what I did there? So the uses of silence, as much as the uses of the correct words, language, vocabulary, whatever you want to call it, this is like a feedback loop, isn't it? It's a communicative process that you're engaging in with yourself. If you go through a thesaurus or a dictionary and you pick out the good words, the empowering words, the powerful words, and the active words, verbs, and terms, and then you start to talk in those words, verbs, and terms, you're now instructing your brain to think in those terms. Just as if you only use submissive terms, you're teaching your brain that you are submissive. Sum total of this message is that we are not defined by personality. We are defined by how we act and how we speak, the communication that we have with ourselves and the words that we use. And these become the ways that we present to others. And as a response or a result of that, people will respond to you accordingly. So if you go into an environment on the back foot as a victim, believing that you're something of a martyr, somehow everybody owes you something simply because you're taking up space and using oxygen, which is a crazy notion, I know. If you go into the process believing that everybody owes you something because you're sacrificing so much of your sweet time and energy to helping them, people pick up on that, and they won't like it. And that is not the same as having authority. If you go into an environment with the self-narrative that you are in control of yourself, you're in control of your emotions and how you respond to things, and that you are the sole architect of your own destiny, and even when things don't work out as you want them to, that is an opportunity to learn, not feel self-pity. That too will transmit to people, and people will respond to you accordingly. Not rocket surgery when you think about it. See, the more I look into it, the more I'm astounded that it needs somebody who has studied coaching to be able to say this. But I think one of the central points or purposes of coaching is to help people who can't see the wood for the trees. It's to help people who are getting in their own way. And again, as I remarked to Candice today, who was cutting my hair, a lot of people see those who take on coaching as weak because somehow they've exposed themselves to needing help or guidance. But the converse is true. People who take on coaches are strong people. A, they've had the strength of intellect to detect there is an issue that needs fixing or working on or cultivating or developing. And the second thing is they've taken that leap of faith and they've exposed that vulnerability to somebody else. And the third thing is that they've been honest enough to make themselves accountable to somebody else. Now, those three attributes do not sound like weakness to me. And they certainly do not sound like the actions of somebody who has given up or somebody who is failing. It sounds like the attributes of somebody who's taken a valuable first step towards remedying something that's really been bugging them for a long time. Now, my live stream is over. I've got to go. I'm going to go and teach some children some music this afternoon, or how to play guitars and drums and things. So I'm going to go and leave you with my final thought, which of course is, whatever it is that you dare to do or dream, you can begin it now. See you next time.